When's the last time you had an opportunity to talk with Nancy Reagan?
I saw her in March, late March, and spent an hour with her in their home. President Reagan was there. I didn't see him, of course, but you felt his presence while we spoke.
How so?
You just had this sense that he was looking over his shoulder, that strength of Ronald Reagan, and we were with his beloved Nancy. And we had a delightful discussion about Washington, about stem cell research. We talked a lot about Ronald Reagan, about all of his achievements, about the personal side of him. It was a delightful hour.
Let me explain to our viewers, Jim, Paula, what we're seeing right now. The crowds have gathered at the Point Mugu Naval Air Station, not far from the Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley in Southern California. People have come with their children, a lot of young kids here. The front of the plane will be where the former First Lady will exit. She'll walk down the stairs together with her children and other guests who have made this flight across the country from Andrews Air Force Base outside Washington, D.C. They will walk down. They'll be received there. There will be a brief service ceremony here. To the rear of the plane, in the belly of the plane, a truck has already pulled up. That will bring the casket down, and then the color guard will eventually move that casket over to a hearse for the journey, for the drive over from Point Mugu, the Naval Air Station here, over to the Presidential Library. We see the family minister showing up with the military, and Nancy Reagan, Paula, will be walking down those stairs shortly. She'll be escorted, I want our viewers to remember this, U.S. Major General Galen Jackman, who's been with her since Sunday. She will walk down. She will walk down those stairs, escorted by the military escort officer who has been at her side virtually every minute since this ordeal began.
I can't even imagine the stories he might have to share someday about the experience of having her lean on him. I'm sure he's provided a great deal of comfort to her.
He had a big role. He had no question about it. When I see this footage also, I think of the library and how President Reagan used to refer to it. He called it his museum. He didn't call it a library. He didn't call it Presidential Library. He'd say, well, this will go in the museum, or we'll do that at the museum. And you know, it also makes you reflect, too, when they made the decision where their final resting place would be. It was the day of the groundbreaking, November 21st of 1988, when they had the ceremonial groundbreaking at the library, that they decided then on the trip down, driving down the small mountain, the hilltop, that would be their final resting place.
And the minister we see at this arrival ceremony is the Reverend Michael Wenning. He's a close personal friend of the family.
Yeah, I do not know him, but he has a major role there today, and you could see how important he was at the beginning of the week for the footage and the photos of Mrs. Reagan in the casket, and how he provided the support that she needed at that time, very much so.
We so often hear living presidents, when questioned about their legacy, say, I'll leave it up to the historians to define that. In any of your conversations with the president after he left office, did he ever tell you what he hoped his legacy would be as seen through the history books?
You know, he did not. He was so low-key about that, and I'll give an example of his unassuming nature. My family and I, we were in San Francisco. We drove down to see him at the ranch early one evening, shortly after he gave one of his last great speeches at the Republican National Convention in Houston in 1992, which was just magnificent. And we were praising him, Nancy and I and my wife and I were praising him over the great speech that he gave, and he was sitting in the chair blushing over that praise and didn't have a response, couldn't say a word, just very shy, and we were embarrassing him. But no, that wasn't Ronald Reagan. He could not talk about his legacy.
We're going to take a pause now and listen to the ceremony as it unfolds.
holding the arm of Major General Galen Jackman in the United States military. He's not simply a military protocol officer or an escort officer. He's a warrior. This is a soldier who served in an elite special operations commando unit, has seen his time in battle, but over these past several days, Paula, since Sunday, his mission has been simply this: to do whatever he can to make Mrs. Reagan's life a little bit easier.
And as she got off the plane just now, she repeated the scene that we saw as she left Andrews Air Force Base, where she took the time to wave to the crowd. At Andrews Air Force Base, in fact, she blew a kiss to the crowd. She's now taking that opportunity, an opportunity she did not have earlier in the week, particularly as the procession made its way to the rotunda, when people screamed out loud. The only thing breaking the silence was, "We love you, Nancy Reagan."
And she's followed up down those stairs, Mrs. Reagan, by her friend Margaret Thatcher, who, as we all know, has not been in the best of health over these past several months, had a series of minor strokes, but she did insist not only on coming to the United States, Paula, and enduring this transatlantic flight, but also insisted on joining Mrs. Reagan to fly back to California. What a gesture.
It's a wonderful gesture of friendship, and she talked a lot about the roots of their friendship during her eulogy today, and she used some beautiful language describing Ronald Reagan and his convictions, and talked about the enormous impact she felt he had in bringing the Cold War to an end.
Did you put on my that?
helicopters under the way, one by the U.S. military, one by the state of California, to share with the Reagan family much of what is being said around the country right now. The U.S. military is going to gather some of Tolenson's books, not only collected here in Washington Day, from all over the country, and in the state of California, certain places, they are handing out blank pieces of white paper, 8.5 by 11, and asking the state citizens to fill them out. And it's quite remarkable what some people have said. One man named Gio said, "A great man that made possible a future for many immigrants to become U.S. citizens." In San Jose, someone wrote that the former president was a man, no American president ever did more to bring back pride to the people and the American military. And one would imagine, Jim Coon, that would be something that would be extremely comforting to Nancy Reagan down the road when she finally has the opportunity to absorb the enormity of what she's been through over the last 6 days.
This will mean a lot to her, knowing that she has the support and that President Reagan, at the end, had this kind of support, this outpouring of the sorrow that people have shown, and yet the upbeat side that they have conveyed throughout this week. That's something that will never leave her mind. Very, very significant to her.
This is the motorcade that will bring the casket to the Presidential Library in Simi Valley, the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. There's the hearse with the casket inside. It will be followed by the limousine carrying Nancy Reagan.